Welcome back to Release the Kraken, where we dive into stories about innovators, leaders, and visionaries shaping Central Florida's future. Today's guest is Kevin Wing. He's the COO of 610 Corporation. 610 is a driving force behind the downtown revival and tech growth here in Winter Haven. And Kevin's career really bridges technology, community development, and faith through initiatives like the Winter Haven Tech Council and Inland Fiber and Data. He's helping redefine what it means to build a connected city. Kevin, let's start with your story. What
Wow,
kind
that's
of
a pretty
first
amazing. First of all, that's a pretty amazing introduction. So hopefully this interview will live up to that one.
There we go. We gotta put the amazing with the amazing.
There we
So
go.
what first drew you into technology? Was it happenstance? Was it goal? What was it?
Yeah. So Purdue graduate with a degree in psych and philosophy got me very quickly placed into the highly technical job of mowing a golf course. So that was kind of the path that that I learned very quickly that, what I had studied certainly had a way of getting, of offering a career, but its actual career path wasn't what I was looking for. But my very first jump into technology actually came at the first corporate group that I work with. And it was a student loan guarantor, and I was in the collections group there. So once your student loan became so far behind, we would call and make payment arrangements and do that kind of stuff. Well, um, that company decided that they had just finished a technical project of rewriting the software, hardware, and networking to support their front end, so all the loan origination. And now it was time to do the back end project. And I was
Gotcha.
selected to be a user interface to the consultants, 3 teams of consultants, to design that new system and software. And I literally sat around a team of 3 consulting groups with DBA scientists, network engineering guys, um, both on the server and the client side, experts on how to engineer hardware and software interactions. And I just sat in that room and asked question after question. I was supposed to be answering questions. Hey, users, how would you like to do it? And
Right.
very quickly, they found out while I did understand the user side and could help them define the user interaction with these systems, um, I literally quickly turned the tables on them and turned it into an opportunity to learn everything I could possibly glean from them on all these different layers of technology. And so that was really the start. And from there, it's been a story of God doing just crazy things that I just still to
Exactly.
this day can't believe. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes it's like God intervened here in this career path and told me that I was going to do this. And that's how we ended up doing what we're doing.
that's right.
Yeah. So that's kind of a walk through the start of your career path. What are some of the major milestones that you've hit throughout your career in technology and business?
Yeah. So kind of the high, points of progression. So from there, went to work for the local incumbent carrier, so the LEC for the Midwest, called Ameritech at the time, soon to be acquired. I think it was by Bell South. Actually, I'm not sure that's accurate. Anyway, by one of the larger LECs. And in that capacity, my job was as an internal consultant to streamline processes and procedures utilizing software platforms. So got to go state by state by state to office by office by office, understand what they did, um,
Right.
map those to systems we knew we had under contract or could easily fit into next year's fiscal budget contract for software automation and workflow automation, and worked with the management teams at those specific sites to explain, we're going to go from and to this. Here's your
Right.
new view of how you work as a manager down into your team. And then here's how your team will be doing the very same work, but in a different environment. So that was my first at scale
Gotcha.
technical involvement. And then I worked as a third-party service provider for a nationwide firm that really supported telecommunications contracts. And that was really doing more of the same, but on that third-party side where I wasn't doing everything I did doesn't benefit company A. I really was able to service multiple companies. And from there, came down to Florida and ended up working for a company over at Kissimmee that had a data center, and
Okay.
their data center guy left, and the CEO at the time came over and said, I hear you kind of know things about computers. Can you come over here and tell us, what's going on in here, and can you help us out with it? And that's, and so it's interesting because you have software layer of technology, whole different set of disciplines, whole different delivery systems, trying to marry that to that hardware and user experience. So I had some experience there, but then moving completely the other end, being at the core infrastructure side on power, cooling, ping, security, all those levels. That's where I came into contact first with CGIS, computer or criminal justice information systems compliance for law enforcement, because we had the
Yep.
FBI was one of our co-location tenants. And so that was my first real dive into not just those core hardware critical infrastructure components, but then real high level compliance,
Right.
and pretty strict. No, the guy that came and did our audit was not someone that I would say had a deep appreciation for the art of comedy. So I like to be, me, I like to have fun no matter what I'm doing. And he had absolutely no appreciation for the fact that this audit could actually be fun. And so
Right.
that was kind of
Just
an
stick
interesting,
in the mud kind of.
that was pretty interesting. Yeah. Yeah. I learned kind of the, maybe not, stereotypical, but what appeared to me to be the stereotypical FBI profile of
Yeah.
a guy who works there in the technology sector. Yeah,
Right.
but from data center, it went from data center, but different firms. But the high level is data center to managed services, launching a managed services operation inside of a technical company.
Right.
Then from managed services, launching a hybrid cloud services set of services with some higher level engineers supported by that managed services desk.
Right.
Then I don't know how to, you know, a weird inkling to change everything I knew about technology, and went over for about 3.5 years to run a mainframe, both hardware and services delivery company. And we were a nationwide firm. That was
Okay.
learning a whole new language, a whole new
Yeah.
architecture, a whole new delivery system. Really, really intricate and amazing technical platform, which is undervalued in the market, in my opinion, but there you go. And then from there, ended up here at 610. And that was also a data center play because of our ownership of Inland Fiber.
Right.
And from Inland Fiber, which is still under my purview, to a heightened focus of the overall real estate portfolio platform today.
Cool. Awesome. So, in your career path, was there a pivotal moment that really changed your approach to leadership?
Wow. Yeah, there was. So I was, the title I had at the time was executive operations manager. And so in that role, I was responsible for facilities in Riverbank, California, El Paso, Texas, Cedar Rapids, Iowa, Lansing, Michigan, and Chesapeake, Virginia. And pretty large operation centers at that time. Total FTEs reporting up into my office would have been maybe just over 4,000 people.
Wow.
Um, yeah, and I got a call. I was in O'Hare Airport, kind of a wintry, snowy day. Great day to be traveling in Chicago. And I was on my way to El Paso for a monthly operations review with not only my team, but we generally did that in cohort with our client at the time, which was MCI WorldCom and their executive staff. And I get paged over the intercom system there at O'Hare Airport, would Kevin Wing please report to the TWA counter? And I'm like nobody even knows I'm here. Like, how is this happening?
Oh,
So
it's
I
a
go to the
Home Alone
counter.
moment.
Yeah, I go to the counter and they hand me an envelope, with tickets. I already have my airline tickets, but they hand me another envelope with tickets and said the name and number of the person you need to call is inside. And I'm like, wow, like this is
Covert.
super weird. So call. It's our corporate office down in Houston, and it's the lady who runs really the key admin for all the senior vice presidents of the company, which I reported to my division senior vice president. Um, Rob will call you by the time you're on the ground, get to Cedar Rapids, and you'll find out everything you need to do. You've been redirected. Everything's taken care of. Thank you for your flexibility. So didn't cancel him. They took care of everything. I just went to a different gate, got on the plane and went to Cedar Rapids. And when I got there, what happened is my boss called me and let me know that the client was so um, unsatisfied with our performance, both culturally and true performance metrics in that facility, that they had written a letter to our corporate office saying that we had the option of either shutting down that facility and they would move that workload to another contractor, or turning it around and um, matching the median production level network wide of all centers doing this work in 120 days.
Wow.
Yeah. So, which is that's a tough challenge. But to add some context, I was 28 and this was my first, executive level job. And so
Right.
I was kind of like, wow. So somebody in this chain of, thought process and orders believes I know what the heck I'm doing. Like,
Or they
like,
want somebody else to pin it on.
yeah. Did somebody, like, where on my resume did it say that I'm a turnaround expert? Yeah, I mean, like this, I don't know what the heck am I going to do here. So, I did know some of the right steps to do at first. So the first 30 days, I just went in and really information gathering, releasing of individuals that were very clearly toxic to the environment that we needed to have in order to make a productive environment out of it.
Right.
And have good cultural, build a family system inside of the organization. So did that within the first week, for the most part, set some standards. But then I realized, like, I'm out of ideas. I mean, I don't know how to do all this stuff and I'm one person. So I did some research, and found a guy who had written a book called Servant Leadership. His name is Jim Hunter. Still does a tremendous amount, if I understand correctly, of leadership consulting to the Air Force, to the Navy, to a number of different large corporations. But he wrote a book. I bought the book. I read the book. I called him. I asked him how much he cost to do consulting. I wrote the bid up and submitted it to my boss and said, I I I I literally believe we can turn this thing around in 120 days if you let me hire this guy for that 120-day period, and he and I come in and take care of this thing. And what Jim Hunter did for me is, um, Jim started the process in my life of taking, faith and work, faith and home life. And those were each separate buckets or separate, boxes and separate things in my life to that point, and
Right.
began to pull those together into a synchronous, symbiotic thought process, way of life, and really, quite frankly, identity and purpose. And I think if we can get into it, probably not this podcast, but I think the secret sauce to a lot of fulfillment in life is being really crystal clear on your identity and also having that aligned to then your life purpose. And so he started to kind of make those things collide for me, and they started working in this business environment that was so messed up.
Right.
And I saw what was really great, Steve, is the first thing we saw was happier people. It wasn't better metrics, which was like fulfilling, but it kind of made me like, uh-oh, like, well, we're going to have happy people when they get fired. So that's at least better than
Right.
really, dissatisfied people. But that so quickly transformed into better production metrics because of
Right.
their level of satisfaction, that it was just a really pivotal life lesson for me. And there were so many different, exercises, strategies, and tactics that he taught me how to start here, move to this one, go to that one. And that progression, creating a deeper and deeper and deeper connectedness and relationship, person to person, from leader to subordinate.
Yeah.
And I use it still to this day. But that was probably the first end. When we talk about going from what I would characterize as, if it's going to be, it's up to me mentality, and moving that more to I have the authority and the accountability. That's my role. Now I need to go seek people who will help me
Right.
exercise my authority and accountability to the highest and best outcome. And so
Right.
just humbling you to seek help, to go out and find other experts, and not have to be that all in all. That was probably the beginning of my walk and getting those things aligned.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think a lot of times people don't realize leadership doesn't always mean doing everything yourself. And it means understanding when it's time to bring the right people into the conversation. So I think
Yes.
that's a fantastic point. And, and I think on another point in your excerpt there is that you really can't separate personal and faith and business into different buckets because it's life. It is all tied in together. And I think if you learn how to operate those as one, I think you end up being a lot happier. You're not trying to be one person over here and somebody else over there. And I think that's pretty important.
I think you can because I did, but
Yeah.
I don't think you can and have the same expectation of life satisfaction that I think we all inherently have.
Right.
So if you're doing it today, you can still keep doing it. But if you want to really rewind the tape and be honest with yourself and say, but is that yielding the satisfaction that I expected? I would strongly suggest you rethink that strategy.
Yeah. Absolutely. So how has your background in tech helped shape how you operate today?
Man, that's a great question. Yeah, one, technology, the people that I got to be around in technology were, one, incredibly intelligent people. Just the capabilities of the people that I got to be around in my career have been just outstanding technical resources. And they were kind enough to, in the process of us working through, especially like when we went from managed services to our hybrid cloud platform offering, they were so kind to share with me the disciplined steps that they had to take to go from idea to designed architecture, right? Here's the design physical. Why is that physical architecture there? Because we know the requirements of the software stack. We know the interdependencies of that software stack. So I've just been so blessed to have people that shared the real technical discipline of a run book and a run book. And I think that even comes just organically, or at least it should, out of the even basic principle of computational science, which is to take a
Right.
task that is extremely repetitive and to do it over and over and over. And well, in order to do that, you have to have your run book down to step dependencies, step dependency deliverable, step dependency deliverable, step dependency deliverable. And so understanding the logic of the system in and of itself and its hierarchy just helps me think through those very same mental systems from an operational perspective to say, well, you just made a decision. Is there a decision that you may have to or should have made prior to that one that would have kept you from moving forward in this one,
Right.
and or added more value if you had it going into this next step? And just always looking at that superior subordinate relationship in process um, has been really helpful. And it
Yeah.
and it's also helpful raising kids, believe it or not.
Yeah. 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 And I think as you say too, in the technology space, run books are key. And that's one of the things that I build with inside my organization are run books and step-by-step processes that are repeatable. So you could theoretically go to McDonald's and get a relatively smart person off the cashier line and bring them in here and have them operate. And those repeatable processes and SOPs that you build out are key to any
Hmm.
business, and I don't think that enough people pay attention to those processes and building those out so that they can be repeated and they can build them in for the repeatability, but not only that, but you have to continue to maintain and update those as processes change, and I think that's one of the things that gets forgotten a lot.
Yeah, it's really what Jason Fracassa, our CFO here at 610, and I are endeavoring to accomplish. And the way we kind of have drawn our success definition or what it would look like if, hey, we've succeeded is if the current exceptional level of human intellectual capital that it takes to run this company were not to show up the next day after we had implemented our systems, could we bring in a new group and get up to speed at the same or even better level of performance without them? um,
Yeah.
and in what period of time. And so that's kind of
Right.
what we're measuring on. How are we defining our processes? How do you define how many different steps that process and different departments it has to go through? Because if you were to also want to economize the system, do you need all those departments, or do you need that size of department? So that's kind of our litmus test, is to kind of check and say, have
Yeah.
we done it to such a level that that's able to be done? But the other really challenging thing inside of that is the culture that has been developed here at 610 is something that absolutely ought to, with all vigor, be preserved. And so preserving that family, all able to speak in, or just the way that we're able to do things, the loyalty that we have here because of the culture they've delivered. The last thing we want to do is to make this automaton system and robotic company.
Yeah.
So we want that predictability and that repeatability, while not at all costs, but certainly being extremely cautious to retain the value of our corporate family culture.
Right.
So
Right.
that's a hard
Yeah.
balance. But
And I think there's a balance too between building those processes so that people are able to do them more quickly.
mhm,
Number one, they're repeatable. If they're out sick, somebody else can help them out, you know? Um, and I think that helps in the culture side of things. But also, if you have these repeatable processes built out and documented, it's easy to take a look and say, okay, where can we save time using AI and automation in this process? So I think that's a cool
yes.
project you guys are working on to get that all
Yep.
lined up.
Yeah. And then our second question, Steve, just to bring that full circle, would be, do we lose the connection to the people that we value the most if we automate it?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's something
Or
we have to be careful of.
could we redeploy that asset that was doing that task to have a higher level relationship with them, instead of having to spend the time doing the high repetitive task? And so those are all things that we're thinking of on a regular basis as we're doing our planning and changing here.
Yeah. Yeah,
Hmm.
that's cool. So the passion for tech and for culture and education and learning, they clearly set a stage for something bigger. So let's talk a little bit about the Winter Haven Tech Council.
Yeah,
We got to get that in there.
you
We
bet.
have to talk about that. That's, I think, a passion project for both of us. So kind of where did the idea on your end come for the Tech Council?
Yeah, a couple of key, I think, pivotal moments in that process as well. First, being in the data center business, and quite frankly, never having been formally educated at all on anything data center, but then quickly being asked to take over that asset, um, made me want to go out and be around people who were in that market space, that were willing to teach me some things. I can start to learn who the different players were. And so I very quickly, went to my CFO and asked for some funds to become members of different data center and technical councils, both in the Tampa and the Orlando market, and spent probably the better part of 10 years, in and out of different groups like that.
Right.
And I did. I learned. I met a ton of great people, incredibly skilled experts in their own right in each of their disciplines. But I always found it to also end up being a place where um, like exposure of where you may be struggling with something was not welcomed, because
Right.
weakness in tech meant an opportunity for someone else in the room to talk to others about that weakness and their weaken your position in the market. Because
Right.
everyone there in some way might compete, not heavily, but you're probably all in the same market. There's only so many,
Right.
opportunities to colo in Central Florida. um, and so that was one thing I missed, because I knew we had this collection of really intelligent people in the room. And why aren't we taking advantage of maybe crossing over some of that experience So I never really got that. And then the second thing is really, I think from the funding source of membership that they had used, the way they monetized their specific councils, it became very sales heavy. Now, I loved being presented with what's coming up new on the Cisco UCS
Right.
platform and what's happening in Emerson's new HVAC module controller alert system. It was great to learn all that stuff, but it
Right.
always came at a cost of, for the next 6 or 7 weeks, getting hammered with phone calls and emails about when can I come meet with you about spending money you don't have,
Right.
or don't need. So that's okay, and I don't fault that system for that way. It's a great way to network. It just wasn't really fulfilling, the total need or total desire that I had in it. So that's really where it started. Is I wasn't able to be around the people that would kind of share that same desire and likeness that I had. Then when I came here to Inland Fiber, um, Hip Neugen, who's the smart city director or executive director for the city of Winter Haven, he and I had met, and out of the blue, he says, "Hey, is there either something I'd like for you to help me with, if it makes sense?" I mean, I don't know if it'll make sense or not, but he used to have a steering committee for his IT smart city initiatives, to where these business guys would all come together, not that often, but come together, and he'd kind of tell them what they're doing, and they'd say, "But that really, wow, that makes a heck of a lot of sense, and we'd kind of like to use that stuff in our own commercial stuff," or
Right.
"It makes sense for the city, but it doesn't make sense for me," but just kind of speak into him, maybe give him some ideas. And he said, "Would you be willing to help me kind of put something like that together?" And I said, "Well, it's funny you should say that, Hip, because I've kind of wanted to put together a group, just generally, not even just as a steering committee, but a group of technologists to get together and kind of share where we are and what's happening in the market, and how can we help the city? How can we help each of our individual organizations? Are you doing something my company needs, or are you doing something one of my
Right.
customers need? And I didn't know to refer you, just all that kind of good stuff." So I said, "Hip, would you help me get something like that going?" He said, "Absolutely." And so that was like, wow, there's someone else interested in doing something like this. And I just started talking, and I think that's ended up how you and Allison met, and then you and I met. Um, and I just started asking someone like, "Hey, I'm trying to put something like this together, and hopefully I can get 4 or 5 people, and we could sit down maybe quarterly or whatever, and have a bite to eat and maybe a drink, and just talk over where we want to go and do that kind of stuff, and it'll organically soon grow." And as you can attest, the the attraction to whatever it is we're trying to get done there, and bridging the commercial community need and delivery and support those systems, and really gain some initial benefits to our county and our state, was a lot more attractive to more people than I thought. So it's
Yeah.
taken off. Very excited about
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. So you want to share with the viewers what our mission for the Tech Council and our long-term vision are for it.
Yeah. So, our long-term vision is we want to be a bridge that serves our communities, both public and private. Obviously, the tech from a tech background. Not that everything we do will be technical, but hopefully it'll have some technical source or some technical grounding in it. Because when I first came to Central Florida, everyone called I-4 the I-4 Tech Corridor. And so I was like, wow, there must be a whole lot of stuff going on out there I don't know about. Here, 25 years later, certainly Florida Poly could certainly fit in the genre of tech, I know, as a STEM
Right.
school, but we just haven't really, I think, hit the sweet spot in what we could be as a technology center. And so we really want to be a place where not only shared ideas, shared values for our community, and a giving, or we want to create value both on the public and the private side. We want to be that bridge to help people do that. But one of the other deficits that you and I have talked about early on in the process was that we have however many higher education institutions within a stone's throw here in our county, an easy car drive, most all of them with a technical curriculum that you can graduate with an associate's and or a bachelor's degree in some technical discipline. And we just don't have the business and the draw to retain those people here. We're exporting them to other companies, other parts of the state and other states. And
Yeah.
so, just as any other economic model, I'd sure like to, one, work in with the educational institutions to help maybe upstream that curriculum so the product coming out is more relevant. step one maybe, or somewhere in those steps. But two, create that demand inside of our in Central Florida, so that we're retaining that very, very high value asset, and keeping that economics close to home.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. And I think, part of the problem goes back to what we were talking about earlier, and being culture within some of these organizations. I think, the startup culture that kids see in Tampa and Orlando and some of these tech companies is very attractive because, they pay well because they've just got a bunch of funding from a PE or a VC backed, investor, and they're willing to pay well for a bunch of work, but they also have tons and tons of fun and benefits to those companies that I think are lacking in some of the more traditional companies here. And I think if we can educate business leaders in those tech sectors on that type of company culture and how to build something like that, I think we can help keep people from driving to Tampa and Orlando a lot.
Yeah, and honestly, I think I've said this a few times with the folks I have met one on one, a couple of institutions, both corporate and educational institutions, that have shown tremendous interest, and I'm very grateful that they have. But I don't have like a stated, this is what I want to get done. There's a lot of things I'd like to get done, as you know. There's not never ending list with me, but
Yeah.
I'm really, my heart's desire is that this organization exists to take other people's deepest desires and needs and make them a reality and find those solutions for them. And if we can be active in solving and creating solutions and partnerships and making introductions, however God has that to happen, we get involved in that. And man, there's almost no
It's
end to what
fulfilling, man.
he can do with that
It,
kind of energy and
yeah.
love. So yeah, so I'm excited about where it's going to go, and
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
overwhelmed by the number of people who have been very supportive of what we're pulling
Yeah.
together.
Absolutely. I am too. So tell us a little bit, how can businesses get involved in the Tech Council, and, what can they do to support us in our growth for that journey? I mean, I think it's so important for our area. What can we do to get businesses involved in the Tech
Yeah.
Council?
Yeah, I think right now the number one thing is get with us. Let's meet. Let's right now it's all about human connection and relationship and understanding and listening to where you are or where they are in their specific journey, what challenges they have. We really want to just get to know everybody and to talk through what we believe our long-term value proposition is. Um, that's really where I think that's where we are in our phase of maturity at this point in time. We've got
Right.
people very, very interested and dedicated to working with us. I've had 3 universities share their curriculum, get me connected with a couple of their professors and or their staff that are directly connected to the technical side of their institution. And now we're just opening in conversations. Where's this? Where do you struggle? Where do you do this? What if we delivered? Do we have to be inside the system, or is it more effective if we come up alongside that system? And so
Right.
right now we're really in the learning phases of where's the need, what gaps can we fill, is there low hanging fruit that we can chop and start to show some great benefit? I mean, it's been bizarre, not wonderfully bizarre, but I just got an email, I think yesterday or maybe the day before, from a member saying, hey, we've got this student, we've been supporting them the whole long during this journey. They're now to their research project. They need a specific computer profile to run this software in order to do all of their research. And here's the 2 profiles. Is there any way you can help? And I'm like, wow, that's like, it's a simple $1,500 investment. Like,
Right.
so I sent that to all my buddies and said, all right, guys,
Yeah,
do you
I
have
think I
one
got the
or
same
yeah,
one from Mel, and I sent her to Johnny at Polk State because I'm like, I don't have any extra hardware right now, but if I could, I would. Maybe we can spin up something virtual on in the cloud,
yeah,
whatever we
we've
need
got
to
a
do to
cluster
help
that
them.
we're
We'll
looking
we'll
at.
figure it out.
Yeah, so I've got 3 guys now looking at our core infrastructure and how we get a little more GPU cycle to meet his need. I don't know if it's him or her, but meet the
Yeah,
need of the requirement.
yeah,
As well as we have a couple boxes. I think we can go buy the GPU for it, and it's only a $400 or $500 investment to make someone's research project a slam
right.
dunk. And so
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just those little tiny things, and it seems like, well, why are you wasting time with little things? But I think if we're being good stewards with little, then God is going to be faithful to then trust us with much. And
Right.
so it also helps us get into our rhythms and systems of those relational connections. Who can I call to do this? Who has that heart of seeing kingdom
Right.
level investing versus what's your, being asked every time, what's my return? I certainly understand it. I truly do. It's part of my job. I do it every day. But when it comes to this level of what we're trying to get accomplished, I think the return has to be a heck of a lot farther out there and more kingdom
Yes.
oriented than not.
Yeah.
And I think if
Yeah.
we have that mindset, then the earthly return will come.
Yeah. Sometimes you have to just think, the return is a good feeling in my heart, and, go on with the day. And, for some people, an investment like that is nothing. And it's not like they're going to take that money and chunk it down the toilet. It's a piece of equipment that can be used in the future.
Right,
So
we
yeah.
get the piece of equipment back at the end. They're like, "We only need it for 2 or
Right.
3 months," and I'm like, "That's a great
Yeah.
investment."
Ex- exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
so we'll see.
And you
We're
get to
gonna
mess
try to
around
get
with
that
a
one
Linux
taken care of.
machine.
Yes, we're
Well, all
hoping to get.
that leads perfectly into the organization that's been helping drive so much of the growth and innovation and revitalization in downtown 610.
Mm, mhm.
So, what is 610's core mission, and how does it differ from other commercial real estate companies?
Yeah, so our core mission is to make Winter Haven one of the greatest downtown cities in Florida, and we do that through, our desire to make it livable, workable, learnable, playable. So workable, we have, a little over 720,000 square foot of downtown commercial real estate space with both food and beverage, office, personal service, professional service, financial service, retail. I mean, just every kind of flavor you can think of, manufacturing a little bit further out of town. So we've got the work, we've got 20 on second, we have rain garden, we have rain dance, and we have the breeze, all multifamily projects to make that livable portion become more and more and more to life.
Right.
Um, we're working on a number of projects on the play side, but one of the great accomplishments of 2025 is signing our master services, our master lease agreement with Southeastern University for our Magnolia property master lease on the second floor. So that brings higher education into downtown as they start
Right.
to develop their programming over the next couple of years. So it's really a multifaceted view of how do you bring liveliness and enjoyment of a work or of a lifestyle to a downtown environment. And so we really are looking at every single one of those entry points strategically and aligning our acquisition, our procurement, and then our activation processes, hopefully, not always, but hopefully to alignment with what the downtown wants to be. So,
Right. So strategy definitely aligns with those pillars that you spoke about.
yep, absolutely, absolutely.
And
Yep.
I know 610 is heavily involved in the community. It's every event you see in the park and things like that. 610's always a sponsor and always involved. Um, what how does that play into strategy? Being
Yeah. So
community involved.
it does because it's interesting. There are businesses that start for many reasons. I've been involved in pretty decent number of startups, and you start to speak to the founders. How'd you start? What was your thought process? Well, the founders here looked at the downtown where they grew up, and for generations their family had been a part of it, and what used to be, and I've got pictures on my machine from back in the 1920s and 30s with parades and downtowns filled with people and people playing shuffleboard in the park. And I mean, it was just a lively community of I think it was just a really well connected community of families. And it just, through economics or whatever happened over a certain period of time, there for a while, the downtown Winter Haven was just a ghost town. I think it happened to many towns across the
Right.
country, but it just didn't become a place that you really spent any time, and if you did, when you were done, you probably were ready to get up and go. Certainly a
Yeah.
place you didn't say, let's head downtown and have a bite to eat, or let's head downtown and go for a walk.
Yeah.
And they decided that not for their own gain, but for, I think, first and foremost, their kids and their grandkids' futures. They wanted a downtown, or they wanted a community that they were proud of to say that they were from, and to continue to anchor their family from. And then in the community at large, who wants to live in a place with a dead downtown? And so, and not dead like, boy, that's boring. I mean, there's nothing happening there. There's not an
Right.
economic
Dead light.
vibrancy. There's not a life
Yeah.
vibrancy. Yeah. And so that really was what attracted me so heavily to becoming or wanting to become a member of the 610 team, was
Right.
that driving force of there is something so much greater. Every single piece that we do is it additive to the greater overall? Is it additive to the greater overall? And so that can be overlooked so often. And I think in the downfall
Yeah.
of some companies, when it just becomes a bottom line spreadsheet number, not that that number isn't important. It's absolutely important because it allows you to go do a lot of things. Um,
Yeah.
but we want to be really good stewards of that bottom line number. And so as we look at that, it's how do we reinvest that back in the community and to our shareholders
Yeah.
in a way that creates that mission.
Yeah. Similar with Kraken. I really run my company based on the thought of helping my clients do better. And in return, it will eventually come back to me. It's all about building relationships. And I think with the downtown, I think, as we all remember, during the 80s, there was this sprawl that happened with the malls that were moving way outside of town. And, everybody wanted to be in the new malls, and they wanted to be in this, and they wanted to be in that. And as people
Hmm.
became more suburban, the downtown just kind of got forgotten. And I think there's something about a cool little downtown that just really you can't beat. My office is right downtown, and if I get hungry, I go walk for lunch. You don't have to get in a car and drive anywhere. I love it. It's fantastic.
Yeah, and I think part of my, the reason that this kind of lights up my heart is I grew up in a small town in Indiana, central Indiana, called Rensselaer, Indiana, and we are the county seat of Jasper County. And if you were to go into the town square, the very center is our courthouse. Every year, the Little Cousin Jasper County Festival was literally held on the town square. And so the bakery was downtown, the pizzeria wasn't too far out of that. The ice cream place was just down the street on the river. The newspaper was printed right there. It was
Yeah.
just such a, I mean, everybody got on their bike and rode all over town and stuff. But during that week, or during that, I think it was a week long festival, you could just find the whole, community getting
Everybody.
together down there at different places. And so to be a part of wanting that same connectedness, that same community here in Winter Haven, is something that's super excited to me.
Yeah. Fantastic. So what is 610's long-term vision for growth in Winter Haven?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, like I said, of the live, work, learn, and play, I think we've got live going well. I don't know how many more. I think there's a minimum on at least our 5-year plan. One more that we're looking, one more multifamily unit to come down there just to create that right density. And we're following folks who have done this before in other bigger cities and
Right.
same size cities, from in terms of what metrics do you really need and at what rates and when in that maturation cycle. So we've got, I think the live side is going well. I think the work, um, our concentration of properties that we've acquired and assembled, um, I think we never say we're done, but
Right.
we don't have that need to be aggressive on the acquisition side. Now it's more stabilize, operationalize, and continue to curate to what the current market needs or wants to help make that mission happen. I think there's more to do on learn. I mean, I'm so glad that
Yeah.
Southeastern's there, and it still hasn't really started to fully utilize the property yet. But I'm excited to see, will they be building synergies that brings even more excitement about learning into the downtown community? Because you bring college aged people in, it's just that vibrancy of youth and the vibrancy of things happening, just I think would
Right.
be really helpful. And then play is a long term, not only is that a mixed use of some of our properties where there's better opportunities for entertainment with families. We've got a couple currently um, that we are working with, at least at the early stages of development of implementation, down in the Bowen West part of town. So I think
Nice.
that might be helpful as well. We've got the comedy club down here already, but I think there's a little more work to do there. I think our long-term vision is to utilize this 3 to 5 year period to highly stabilize. We've done a ton of growing, and when you grow that fast, there's just pains, here and there that you've
Yeah.
got to start to iron out. And we've been running hard on that acquisition, curation, and activation process. So going back and
Yeah.
really fine tune comb, maybe like tightening up the screws a little bit there. Um, but really, quite frankly, we are a long term partner with the Winter Haven community, and so I would say it's our activity there and our interaction is going to be just as much molded by those who come to us and partner with us with how we could be helpful as it will, and how do we use our assets to do what we need to do in the downtown area, as it will be our own, hey, here's what we're going to go do. I think our mission, I don't think we're going to stray at all from the mission.
Yeah.
It's
Yep.
keep perfecting that, keep delivering that in
Perfect.
partnership with both the city government, county government, and then the community.
Awesome. Awesome. And of course, behind all that, we've got to have connectivity to play with the big boys.
Yeah,
And a lot of people don't know that we have a data center downtown.
that's right.
So let's talk a little bit about the connection between Inland Fiber and 610.
Yeah. So, like many things, a lot of business deals can just, and even business creation come out of an opportunity that comes stripping across your front door. And there was a group where we had, before I was a 610, of course, but a group that had a need to build a data center and wanted a place in Central Florida, and primarily wanted that because of the fiber density and network latency of the application that they were implementing. And sure enough, we had 5 stories of a former GTE technical switching station that was pretty fiber dense, and so it made sense to everybody. So we built out our first space for them specifically, which became our open floor and caged colo space on the 4th floor. And then what was really genius about how they did it, the 5th floor, unlike a lot of the data centers I've been in, the 5th floor was really designed taking into consideration where you have a high concentration of both capital business and then assumed IT infrastructure on the coast, where you had higher density of agricultural. Certainly there was business here, but agriculture and other land uses. And so what we wanted to do is, since we were in the very near the center of the state, far away from both the coasts from windblown debris and hurricanes and things like that, 500-year flood zone, 168 feet above sea level, which coming from Indiana doesn't sound like a lot, but down here it's a really, really far away from the sea. So, yeah, we took advantage of that. And instead of building another then, huge data center floor wide open for racks and cages and that kind of stuff, we built individual data center suites so that companies on the coast could bring their critical infrastructure into the center of the state and literally have their data center within a data center, completely sequestered, deck to deck, concrete block, your own fire suppression, your own power, your own power distribution panels, and your own cooling systems engineered for the kilowatts of consumption inside that space. And so, really neat model that allowed that compliance. I've got higher compliance than your data center does. Well, interesting. We can have the level of compliance for the whole facility, and then you can even raise that inside of that space because of the physical barrier that you get to present, from SOC 2 or any other PCI, HIPAA, or any of those type of compliances. And what was also great about the early evolution of that data center is, I was working for a firm, not 610, but we were one of the larger clients inside that space, and we had a contract with the state of Florida, and the agencies had 6, 7, 8 different compliance levels that you had to meet in order to serve them all. And so we went to the CIO and said, dude, is there any single level that we could actually begin to comply to, that the state would accept as this meets our needs and it supports all of our other compliance needs. And he goes, oh
Right.
yeah, that'd be CGIS for sure. And we said, great. Well, can you work on making that the compliance level at the state? We'll start working with the state law enforcement folks to get us CGIS certified. So
Right.
both of those ended up happening from a timing perspective, pretty close to each other. So we basically utilized a relationship up there to learn all the CGIS requirements, have them come for a pre-audit, look through the facility, give us our remediation list, fix the remediation, and come back down then and say, we'd like for you to audit us as a CGIS facility, and became CGIS compliant. So the beauty of that is we generally support on the physical security side just about any other compliance level that you'd want. So we
Yeah.
can offer that piece, and then you can then hand that to your auditors, because all of our clients are allowed to have that copy of that report, and then you just
Right.
layer on the logical compliance to your specific requirements. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's cool because most of the time there's a lot of overlap in these different compliance frameworks. So
Mm-hmm.
it's you know,
Mm-hmm.
but
Yeah.
the audits are unbearably expensive sometimes. So if you can comply with one that encompasses everything else, that's kind of nice.
Yeah, it allows our customers not to bear the burden of the cost of the physical layer of security, and then some layers of our logical. Just depends on where in the service stack that they end up with us. But yeah, yeah, it takes that
Cool.
burden, and now they can focus on those specific compliances that are really tied to
Right.
their day-to-day operations, and they
Right.
don't have to be
Right.
data center minded. We get to take that burden off of them.
Yeah. That's always great. So what are you most excited about in terms of innovation here in Winter Haven?
Wow. Innovation in Winterhaven. Well, I'm most excited, to be honest with you, about um, what our first accomplishment at the Winter Haven Tech Council is going to be. We have so many people asking us for what are we doing and how do we get involved and can we get together and work on a project? I think that's going to be a super exciting thing. I think Winter Haven as a whole, what I'm really excited is that I hope we begin through more awareness of both the Tech Council and some other technical businesses that operate every day out of Winter Haven. That awareness grows and we become more of a site for outside organizations to say, I think that might be a really good place to build one of our satellite offices,
Right.
for many reasons. Not only is that a great economic increase or growth for the Winter Haven and Polk County communities, but again, to start utilizing those assets that each of these colleges are creating, coming out with degrees, and keeping that economic stability here by utilizing that resource, buying homes, buying groceries, paying taxes, taking advantage of the fact that we raised that resource up and now want to keep it at home and harvest from it. So I think that'll be super exciting to be a part of increasing those levels of community involvement.
That's cool. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with, I'm excited to see where the tech council goes and what it brings. And, I think we're really going to be able to build a micro economy centered around technology here in Winter Haven and really put us on the map. I think it's going to be great.
Very exciting.
So let's do one more segment. Beyond business, I know your faith plays a
Mhm.
big part in your life.
Yeah.
And leadership. So, how does your faith and influence how you make decisions? I know it's got a big part in how your mind works and how you make decisions.
Yeah. I think it's funny that you asked me that question. Just this morning in my daily devotional, it said, and I think it's out of John, I can't remember which chapter, maybe John 13, somewhere in there, that the world is going to know that we are disciples of Christ by the way we love, and not just love each other, but love everyone. Um, and so, you know, early in my faith walk, I selfishly applied that to people that I liked or people that liked me. And in business, you sometimes have to work with a lot of people that, even though you may like each other, there can be an awful lot of tension in getting to the place where you need to go. And so I never really applied the rule of loving them well as the the true North Star and the true purpose for having the position that I had. And as I've matured over the years, I've found that that's absolutely the only reason why I'm sitting in the seat that I'm sitting in, is to figure out um, both those that I report to and those that report to me, and then those in my network, people, friends, and business partners. If I just set my number one goal of loving them really well, um, then the product of everything else that we may do, you know, some will be good and some probably won't be as good, uh,
Right.
which will be fun. We'll figure out which ones are better than not. But man, that's just an incredibly satisfying life. I will tell you that
Yeah.
much.
Yeah.
Um, I had a conversation this morning that kind of comes into the similar conversation, I should say, or similar topic. We were talking about the number of things that we're involved in and the projects we're looking at and what 2026 looks like. And he said, are you stressed out about all that? No, no, not at all. And I said, but I am overwhelmed. And he said, well, what's the difference between being overwhelmed and being stressed? And I said, stress for me comes when I think I have to know what's going on and I know I know the answer. Overwhelmed is I'm in that very same circumstance, but I know the guy who does know all those answers, and I'm just going to stick around hopefully long enough to figure out how he's going to get us to get there.
Right. Yeah.
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 So it's very
Absolutely.
peaceful. Yeah.
Yeah.
So my
It
faith
is.
has made my work life a heck of a lot more peaceful. And when I didn't have the faith to have patience, uh, love is first word patient in scripture. When I didn't have the patience, um, then I usually quickly move to Kevin's method. Let's go to what I think. And when I have patience, I find he either brings great ideas or thoughts or good things to me, or he brings people who have them to me. And then it's really cool. Then it's amazing
Yeah.
because then those
Yeah.
people get to be a part of something that's just so great. So yeah, faith in my leadership is definitely, those aren't separate buckets that I manage. That's a single bucket for me.
Cool. So there's got to be moments where your faith and business have challenged each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I have to tell the story without using names though, because to protect the not innocent. No. Yeah. So I came up against a business partner and man, I mean, for the life of me, we just couldn't see eye to eye. I mean, I would say, look here, that's the number one, right? Well, it could be one. I think it might be two. I'm like, how do we get here? How are we going to get past this thing? And it was, and I do have a temper. Thankfully, the Lord's kind of calmed it down quite a bit in the last 5 or 10 years. But yeah, I was very frustrated, really, really frustrated. And so I knew in the past where the way I had been trained as an executive was, um, the more effectively you remove that barrier, the more quickly you'll be rewarded by this corporation. Move on, get it going. Let's go.
Right.
And I was pretty good at doing that. And in this instance, I almost reverted to doing that. Like, well, I can fix this problem. Jim saying, here we go. Let's just get it on. Right. And instead, I really did. I was so perplexed. I was perplexed. Like, why won't this guy just get along with me? Like, it's okay if we disagree, but why won't we just get along and just like,
Right.
okay, let's work through this. And I sat in my office. I was over in the data center building at the time. I shut the door and I usually spent about 20 minutes a day just sitting in my chair, no notebook, no commercial, no computer, nothing, just sitting, thinking and talking and praying to the Lord. And he just clearly said, well, try loving him. And I'm like, man, I don't think you know who I'm talking about. This is not going to be like, well, this isn't one of those things, man. Yeah, and it was just like, I don't know. I won't say we had this like ongoing audible conversation, but I just knew in my heart he was done speaking to me about it. He had told me clearly what I should be doing. And so I didn't do it. I did not do it, just in all candidness. I went away. I just didn't do anything for about 2 weeks. And it was really just to get my mind settled on how am I going to love this guy, and just decide to love him. So brought him into the office and shook his hand and said, um, I have a great respect for everything that I've heard of that that you've achieved in your career. And I listed a bunch of stuff that I knew about him. And I said, I haven't done any of those. I haven't achieved any of those things. None of those are on my list. And I think that's where we're starting to mix and match. Like, you have a framework of success that has worked in a market, not this market, but in a market. I have had success in a framework in a market, in this market, and we're trying to line those two things up, and they won't, because they're two separate ways of thinking in two separate markets. And
Right.
so I'd like to explain to you the restrictions and the rules with which I'm bound to. Right, here's what I've been charged to go do, to help you understand why I'm asking what I'm asking of you to go do. And he said, wow, I wish you would have started, wish you had told me that like 2 months ago. And I was like, yeah, I probably should have. No, we didn't, like, we didn't kiss and make up. We aren't holding
Right.
hands. We aren't good, great friends. But um, he was able to walk away and think about it for a while. I was able to walk away and think about it for a while. And we came up with an amicable solution. And so, yeah, so faith and work kind of beating heads on, hey, there's a more efficient way to deal with this. I can take care of this problem real quick, and it's going to be,
Right.
it won't turn out real well for one of us at least. But instead, being patient and treating him with dignity and looking for a way for both of us to win. Yeah, I would not call us friends. We're acquaintances to this day. No,
Yeah.
but neither of us, neither of us have a bad thing to say about how we worked that out. So that was really a blessing, great blessing.
Yeah. Cool. Well, man, I got to tell you, Kevin, it's been an awesome conversation, and I really enjoyed it. So thanks again for joining us, and thank you to our listeners. And we hope you want to get to know more about the Winter Haven Tech Council and 610 and Inland Fiber and Kraken. And if you want to know anything, just find us on LinkedIn. We're all there. So thank you guys. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, Steve.